Lions announced their coaching staff for 2025, and we talk NFL draft.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what could go wrong? What's going on, everybody? It's a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matt Derry with you, your host here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today is Tuesday, February 18th and a Wednesday, February 19th. Thanks for making us your first listen, checking us out, everybody, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you to our everydayers that are out there that watch the podcast on YouTube or listen daily, whether it's on Spotify or Apple or the Odyssey app. We appreciate all of you for joining us daily. That includes some new everydayers that I'm just being made aware of, including my new friend, Edward Shehab. Edward's a great dude. Tom Moriarty moving back to town. That's the rumor. Sources tell me Team Money moving back to town. BAE Network's own Tim Collins, an everydayer. Thank you, Tim. A special happy birthday to somebody that I don't even know is an everydayer, but I saw it was his birthday today. The great Jason Maxiel, former Detroit Piston. Happy birthday to Max. Anthony and Sandy Pavicic, currently in Mexico, everydayers. The Impellizzeri family. Mike Marcelloni. Shout out to our everydayers that are out there, and also the Druin clan, some wrestling going on up I-75. But thanks, everybody, for being with us. Damian Parson is going to be our guest today. Damian co-hosts the Locked On NFL Draft Show right here on the network. Does a great job. We're going to get Damian on to talk all things draft and what he thinks the Lions might be doing at number 28. We will do that momentarily. News of the day is that the Lions made it official today and announced their 2025 coaching staff. The reason why this is a big deal is because the staff is, I'm not saying all brand new, but there are a lot of new faces on this staff. There's guys that we've been talking about that have been confirmed by the Leos that actually are going to be joining Dan Campbell on the coaching staff. So no surprise, obviously, that the offensive coordinator is now official, John Morton, who did tell Dan Miller yesterday on the Fox 2 that he will be calling plays. So on the offensive staff, you've got John Morton and Scotty Montgomery coming back. Montgomery coming back, I should say, as wide receivers coach. Passing game coordinator, David Shaw. Mark Brunell coaching the quarterbacks. Tyler Roll coaching the tight ends. Assistant tight ends coach now is Seth Ryan. That's Rex Ryan's son, who was the assistant wide receivers coach last year. He's now being moved to tight ends. Tashard Choice, the former NFL running back, now the running backs coach. Hank Fraley, we knew, would be the run game coordinator and offensive line coach. His assistant O-line coach, Steve Oliver, remains. New offensive assistant, Bruce Gradkowski, formerly of PFF, formerly of the UFL, and former NFL quarterback. Justin Mesa will be an offensive quality control coach. He's a young dude that's coming over from Washington State, where he was the assistant special teams coach there. And an interesting name as an offensive assistant, former Raiders legend, former UW legend at quarterback, the great Marcus Tuiasosopo, yes, is going to be an offensive assistant for the Lions. Pretty cool hire, and a guy that, was in the NFL for many, many years with the Raiders and has been coaching in college since 2009. Most recently, Tuiasosopo was the OC down at Rice University. On defense, Kelvin Shepard, we knew this, moves from linebackers coach to defensive coordinator. Casey Rogers, run game coordinator and defensive line coach. Senior defensive assistant outside linebackers, David Correo, is back. New linebackers coach, the former Lion linebacker, Sean Dion Hamilton. Deshae Townsend running the defensive backs again. And passing game coordinator, Jim O'Neill, who was a defensive assistant last year, now is going to be also adding safeties to his mix. Two new defensive assistants, August Mangan and Caleb Collins. Mangan coming over from the 49ers, where he was the last few years. Dre Thompson will be the William Clay Ford minority coaching assistant and handling defensive quality control. Collins, by the way, Caleb Collins, mentioned him as a defensive assistant. He comes over from Baylor, where he was there outside linebackers coach. Dave Phipp back as special teams coordinator, and his assistant, Jet Modkins, also is back. So there is your coaching staff for 2025. A lot of new faces, a lot of new names. But again, and I've said this, I've been saying this for weeks. The Lions could have a great staff, a mediocre staff, an average staff, whatever it is. You got to have players. You've got to have players. And tomorrow on the show, I want to dive deeper into the Brad Holmes interview, which I watched earlier today on the Local 4 website. He was interviewed by Rhonda Walker for like 45 minutes. They use snippets of it on actual television, but the full interview can be seen at Local 4 News' website. No word on if during the interview they cut it off and go to local news like they did on Sunday night during the SNL special. I kid, Local 4. I kid, we love you. But Rhonda Walker did a good job. But something stood out. There was one thing that I took from the interview that the Lions GM, Brad Holmes, did with Rhonda that I want to share tomorrow. And that's, it's not groundbreaking, but I think it's going to tell the tale of this offseason, something Brad was talking about when it comes to a certain event that is happening in the month of April. But yes, I like the Lions coaching staff. I like the former players that are there. John Morton, like I said before, told Fox 2 yesterday and Dan Miller that he will be calling plays next year. And Kelvin Shepard said it too in the interview with Fox 2. They're going to stay aggressive. They're going to stay hungry. They're going to come after people. The biggest question I'm going to have on this staff is Morton and the play calling. You have just lost. Look, losing Aaron Glenn is no picnic. Guy was a tremendous defensive coordinator, especially the last couple of years. And how he held it together this year with all the injuries, he did a great job. And he deserves to be head coach of the Jets. But you're losing Ben Johnson, the best play caller in the game, the assistant coach of the year in the NFL. How will John Morton, who failed the first time he was an offensive coordinator in this league, 7 years ago with the Jets, 7 years ago with the Jets, how will he do in his second time around? When Morton, by the way, was with the Raiders, Tuiasosopo was with the Raiders, so there's that connection there. All right, Damian Parson, host of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, right here on our network, is going to join us. Coming up next, we'll talk a little draft with Damian and where he sees the Lions going. We'll do that on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions. And the podcast today brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Look, we know the NBA's off for the next couple of days. They're coming back from the All-Star break. But hey, college hoops tonight. Purdue at Michigan State, big game in the Big Ten. Friday, you want to put some money down on MSU and Michigan as those two teams clash at the always raucous and always loud and crazy Chrysler Center. You can do all of that at America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. If you use FanDuel's live betting feature, it's great because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Plus, the app is so easy to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. As promised, everybody, one half of the Locked On NFL Draft Show right here on the network. Damian Parson, who hosts that fine show, joins us today. Talk a little draft and Lions as well. Damian, great to see you.
Oh, always, man. Always a good time. Anytime I get to hop on the Locked On podcast airways with some of my colleagues, I always have fun doing it.
Congratulations, by the way. Your second son was born last week. You're on no sleep,
sir.
but here you are on the show. I appreciate that.
Dedication.
I love it. All right. Interesting, Damian. I saw a piece today on NFL.com. They said the Lions draft class from last year was ranked 28th, which is not good. And they kind of bashed Terry on Arnold a little bit. As you look at last year's class, obviously highlighted by Arnold and Christian Mahogany, Makai Wingo, wasn't Brad Holmes' best, but 28th, is that a little wrong in your mind?
Yeah, I think that's a little harsh. Yes, of course, Terrion had his ups and downs, but when you watched him at Alabama, one thing you knew is that this young man is a student of the game, a heavy tape grinder himself. He always looks to get better, and he's super coachable. So, I'll never forget listening to him at the podium talk about being just reamed by Nick Saban for messing up a coverage or whatnot and not doing his assignment. And most young men, they can't really handle that Bill Belichick, Nick Saban style coaching where it's not so player friendly. It's in your face. It's accountability when you're wrong. And to watch Terrion take that in stride showcases the character that he has. This young man's going to get better. And I think with him, of course, injuries was a big part of that of your season defensively. Defensive backs, D-line, linebacker, I feel like everyone, all the starters felt like they were hurt at some point in 2024 for your Lions. I think Terrion's going to be better. I think he played solid this year. But I think, again, first year in the league, it's a different ball game. You're getting different things thrown at you. And I think he's a guy that's going to be able to adjust.
Yeah, no, I mean, he started off slow. He was a PI machine the first couple of weeks, but for a rookie having to play on an island, a ton of man coverage under Aaron Glenn.
Yep.
Maybe PFF didn't love his numbers, but I thought for a first-year corner playing arguably the toughest position in the game, I thought he did pretty well, don't you think?
No, 100%. Like when like you said, and then being in a division that you're in, and when you face the Bears twice a year, you have either Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, or DJ Moore on an island with the rookie, right? And then you're facing the Vikings. You got Jordan Addison, and of course, arguably the best receiver in the league, and Justin Jefferson. These are tall tasks for a rookie cornerback to handle, not just as a rookie, but like you said, heavy man to man, and on an island by himself. So it's like, and then when you lose Aiden Hutchinson, your best pass rusher, that guy that consistently makes quarterbacks uncomfortable all 4 quarters, when you lose a guy like that as early as you did in the season, at that point, like it has a trickle down effect on the secondary. The quarterbacks can hold the ball a little bit longer because, hey, Aiden's not here. We got more time to let our routes develop. The receivers can do different things, even freelance a little bit more, because they know that the number one pass rusher for this team and one of the best defensive players in the league is not available.
Damian Parson with us, co-host of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. You get it daily right here wherever you get your podcasts, and of course right here on the network. All right, what are you guys talking about right now? What's hot in terms of draft before we get into the Lions?
Man, of course, Combine coming up next week. Guys having a chance to, you think about some of the guys that were at the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, that had good weeks or just okay weeks. Now they get to put another notch in their belt, be able to go to this Combine, test well, interview well, do everything they're supposed to do at the best of their ability. This is the second part of the biggest interview of their lives, because I think the Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl, that's the first part of this thing if you get invited. For those guys that haven't been, the quarterbacks and everything else, people are looking forward to seeing Cam Ward and Shador Sanders and Jackson Dart, and now Tyler Shuck from Louisville is getting a lot of publicity from draft media and everything. Now people are looking forward to seeing all these guys hopefully throw at the Combine, and let's see a nice duel of arm talents down in Indianapolis at the Combine. So I think that's really what's hot at the particular moment. And of course, everybody's kind of moving, trying to figure out where the quarterbacks are going to land, what teams. Are the Titans going to stay at 1? It's just so many storylines to pay attention to right now. And as you know, as we all know, we get to the Combine. That's what a lot of the trades for the offseason and the draft really takes shape. A lot of stuff happens down in Mobile and at the Shrine whenever these GMs and head coaches get together and they talk and, hey, you got a guy I need, and, well, you got a draft pick that I need. Let's talk a little bit of business here. But then by the time you get to the Combine, now the GMs are involved. Everybody's talking it on one accord, and now things really gets the ball rolling for some of these big moves. And I'm expecting to see some. We might have a trade or two in the top 10 of the NFL draft for these teams that need quarterback.
Who's your QB1? Who do you like the best?
I have Cam Ward from Miami. I just think this is a young man. Going into his background, he has that chip on his shoulder, being a 0-star recruit because he played in a wing T triple option offense in high school, so they didn't throw the ball a lot. So he wasn't a guy that threw the ball all over the yard, but he has over 2,200 pass attempts throughout college. He's been this is what 4 or 5 year starter, going from Incarnate Word to Washington State to Miami this year. And truthfully, he was the reason Miami could say that the U was back. He was the guy that led that charge. He's accurate. He's got an outstanding arm. He can play within structure, but the out of structure stuff, if you get pressure, the pocket presence, his ability to make throws from different platforms, he has everything that you can't coach, and he's a lover of the game. He loves football. He lives and breathes the stuff. I think Cam Ward's my QB1 with Shedeur Sanders backing him up at QB2.
All right, take me through what your thoughts on Detroit in terms of needs. And they sit at 28. This is a 15-win football team. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Hutchinson and really the edge opposite him everybody's talking about. But what do you kind of envision Brad Holmes thinking at 28 right now?
At 28, I think he's, I think he's going to do what's kind of what has been his motto for the most part. Is you see him kind of go best player available. And, you think about edge, corner being truly the two top needs, in my opinion, for this team. And I think about guys that can come in and be a little bit of an option, because I think you still have Zadarius Smith, I believe, under contract.
Yes.
This year. So that's a good thing. And I feel like one of these guys are going to fall that you can play on the edge and just let him get after, but he's got to be a culture guy, right? To fit that Dan Campbell culture. And the guy that I continue to come back to is 22-year-old. He'll be 23 in about a couple months, probably around the draft or a little bit after. Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State, the 6'5", 260-pound young man. This guy is physical. He's strong. He's got good quickness. He's coming off of a season, back-to-back seasons actually, of 8 or more sacks. In 2023, 8 sacks. In 2024, 10 sacks, 16 QB hits, almost 40 pressures. He's really good at understanding. He has a high football IQ, and he understands, like, similar to Aiden, if I can't get back there, I'm going to get my hands up and I'm going to knock the ball down. But he's an outstanding run defender, can set the edge well, and I think he pairs very well with putting him, whether it's because he also can reduce down because he's 260, but he has the body of a 270 guy that's 275, 270. Where if you want Zadarius lined up outside and you want to reduce him down, have Aiden flanking Zadarius on the opposite side, or vice versa, have Jack and Aiden on the outside and stand Zadarius up on the guard, you get to really create mismatch problems and create one-on-one opportunities. Because even when Aiden returns, we know that they're going to slide protection his way. So one of those two guys, or whoever, the rookie and Zadarius Smith, they can coexist. Somebody's getting one-on-one. I think Jack Sawyer is a guy I think could be there 100% at pick 28. Michael Williams out of Georgia, 6'5", 265, has that Trayvon Walker type of profile to an extent. At Georgia, they don't really develop a lot of their guys, like, technically, so they come in a bit raw with their hand usage. And what better way to learn how to rush the passer than learning from one of the best technicians in the game in Aiden Hutchinson, and then learning from a wily veteran who's done it for years, almost a decade, if not Zadarius Smith. I think there's a lot of meat on the bone for this young man. We have not seen the tip of the iceberg for him. He's only 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 for, I think, another 4 to 5 months. So he's young. He's raw. But again, 6'5", 260, nearly 270, long arms, just a very interesting profile physically that I think with the way he plays, and he's used to hard coaching too, with Kirby Smart coming out from that Nick Saban tree. They're going to get in your face. They're going to get into you and get on to you if it holds you accountable when you don't do things right. He knows, and he's a champion. He has that championship pedigree that can fit well in his locker room.
I love it. This is great stuff from Damian Parson. If I was to put in front of you, let's say you're Brad Holmes, and I say you got a choice of Shamar Stewart, Mike Green, Jack Sawyer, who are you taking if any of those guys are at 28? And do you think they will be?
I think Jack Sawyer will. Shamar is it's very polarizing with Shamar because he is 6'6", 290, freak athlete, can move and do all the different things. But there's a lot of there's optimism and then there's pessimism, truthfully, in this space when it comes down to his game, because he only had 2 to 4 sacks, this season. He had a okay first day in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, had a better day too, and then he kind of phoned it home in the sense, respectfully, it didn't practice the third day, nor did he play in the game. He only practiced 2 days and felt like he did enough. I think he could potentially be there and slip down. I think, of course, he could potentially go. Shamar Stewart has the look of, shout out to our guy Peter Bukowski over at Locked On Packers. He has the look and the lack of production of a Green Bay Packer edge rusher. Like the Lucas Van Ness.
You're not allowed to bring Pete's name up on this show.
That's my guy.
What about Mike Green?
I think Mike Green potentially get there, but I think he might go early. But if he's there and I'm Brad Holmes, I run the card in. This young man was so impressive down in Mobile in person, coming in at I think 6'3", 253, almost 255 pounds, good arm length. The get off is there. He has the best ghost dip move in the draft to be able to give that feint punch, dip and bend around the edge, and he converts speed to power. He had arguably the most viral pass rush at the Senior Bowl when he ran through the chest of Oregon left tackle Josh Connolly, who was working to be a first-round pick, potentially could still be. He has the power. He can set the edge in the run game. This young man has a high motor and gets after it. And he's a really good pass rusher all around. I think he led the country in sacks this year. Mike Green, if he's there, if I'm Brad Holmes, I run that card up and I don't even look back.
More with Damian Parson coming up next from Locked On NFL Draft. Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 2.0 came out today, and they have the Lions taking an offensive lineman. I want to ask Damian about that coming up next. Always enjoy conversations with Damian Parson from Locked On NFL Draft. Check him out daily on that very podcast. All right, Damian, there's talk, again, Kevin Zeitler maybe moves on in free agency. Lions would love to retain him, I think, and he had a really good year at right guard. Christian Mahogany played well in his stead when Zeitler was out, and also maybe Mahogany spells Graham Glasgow at left guard this year, which could have an opening for the Lions at offensive lineman. Saw today Daniel Jeremiah's mock 2.0 at NFL.com as the Lions taking Donovan Jackson, the big guard out of Ohio State. If that were to be the case, what would you think of that pick?
I would love that pick. This is a guy that I'm really high on, Donovan Jackson. When Josh Simmons, the star left tackle from Ohio State, went down, who reminds me a lot of Christian Darrisaw, maybe with the footwork and the athleticism of Rashawn Slater. When he got injured against Oregon early in the season, and they had to make a decision. Who do we put at left tackle? They moved their left guard, who I don't believe up until this season had ever played left tackle. So, no, he had never played left tackle until this season. He's played 3 straight years at left guard, and he steps in. And outside of the game, his first start, he was baptized by fire against Abdul Carter, who, listen, when you go from playing guard to playing tackle, like
the number 1 pick, yeah.
Yeah, he could be the number 1 pick. That first step, explosiveness, all that good stuff. I think if he saw him later in the season, I think Donovan would have gave him a run for his money. Because watching him against Oregon, against Michigan, against all these different defensive lines that have NFL talent all over them, Donovan Jackson was good. Like, to see him actually, to me, I think he's a better tackle prospect than a Kelvin Banks, who's for the consensus is a highly rated guy coming out of Texas. I think Kelvin needs to play interior offensive line, play guard, while Donovan Jackson, if you need a tackle, you can play him at tackle. At guard, coming off the summer, I had a first-round grade on this guy. He is strong. He is physical. He's got good lateral agility and quick feet in the pass protection game to mirror and match those one-on-one rushes on the interior, but he's also going to create running lanes. And in this offense, yes, Ben Johnson is gone. I don't think they're going to walk away from the pond that gave them the water. I think they're going to stay with that run game and use Jahmyr Gibbs the same way they did, use David Montgomery, and have Sonic and Knuckles still lead this offense, with Jared Goff being the efficient and pro-style quarterback that he is. 100%. I think putting a Donovan Jackson, like I said, either at left or right guard, and you're talking about having 2 cost-efficient young tackles on your offensive, young guards on your offensive line, potentially with Mahogany on the rookie contract and Donovan Jackson on the rookie contract. Now you can spread some money in other places that you need, whether it's getting a veteran cornerback to help out that young group that you have with Rakestraw coming back and Terrion Ono and everything like that. Maybe you go get another veteran pass rusher, what have you. I like that fit. If they were to draft Donovan Jackson, it just depends on what defensive lineman will be on the board that you will pass up on. But this is a deep edge class, really, truthfully 2, 3, 4 rounds deep. You can find you a starter on day 2 for sure. I love Donovan Jackson and that fit to the Detroit Lions.
Final thing, some buzz about a day 2, maybe second or third round receiver here, especially if Tim Patrick gets signed elsewhere. Really a great job on a 1-year deal as the number 3 receiver this year in Detroit. And any day 2 receivers that pop up in your mind that you've seen that you like?
Oh, yeah, of course. Savion Williams from TCU, 6'4", 225. He made Bruce Feldman's freak list this summer. This is a guy, I think he topped out on the GPS north of 22 miles per hour. He is a ridiculous athlete at the wide receiver position. They used him a little bit. They showcased his versatility this past season for TCU. He played, he ran the ball, wildcat running back, different rocket quarterback. They aligned him in the backfield and ran Texas angle routes with him matched up on the linebacker. But at 6'4", nearly 6'5", 225 pounds, I expect him to test like a freak athlete at the combine next week. You think about adding that type of size and catch radius and leaping ability to this offense that has have Jameson Williams, that has Sam Laporta at tight end, and of course having that just do it all slot guy in the Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of my favorite draft prospects in the past decade. I was really high on the Amon-Ra St. Brown. I was so happy to see the success he's had. I think Savion Williams could be a really nice fit, but keep your eye on Utah State's wide receiver Jalen Royals, 5'11", over 200 pounds, about 205. Saw him down in Mobile. And the first thing that pops off the cuff of looking at him, he looks ready for the NFL. This young man was well built, well proportionate build, and strong frame. It was difficult for guys to get hands on because of how physical and strong he was, but he had a nuanced enough release package to win at the line of scrimmage, win early, and stack guys. He can be an X, he can be a Z, he can play in a slot. You just give this offense just more versatility and alignment fluidity to move guys around and create those mismatches, because teams are going to try and bracket Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you add a guy like Jalen Royals in and you get him matched up on CB 2, 3, or even 4, it's going to be a tough time for that defense to stop him while trying to keep Jameson Williams intact, keep Sam Laporta underneath, and of course stop Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Damian, great stuff, man. You are all over it. We'll get you on again before the draft for sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the time, my friend, and get some sleep.
Yes, sir. Always.
Damian Parson with us, one half of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. Check it out wherever you get your podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. That's a Tuesday, Locked On Lions, everybody.